We're back here on Cubs 360 presented by Miller Lite, and it is time to get to know the newest Cub, Jameson Taillon. And we're flashing back to this Instagram picture that he posted as a kid in a Cubs hat. Coming for you, Sweet Home Chicago. Let's go Cubs. So with that, we welcome on in Jameson. Jameson, it's great to see you. It is great to see that picture, and that is exactly what I have to ask about first, is take me back. The Cubs hat, you said you played on a Little League team for the Cubs. I also saw the Batman shirt, maybe a big Batman fan growing up.
That's like so 1990s right there. I was sitting on that picture just waiting for this to be announced so I can post it.
And you had your opportunity.
Yeah. I was on a Cubs Little League team. And my brother, growing up, was a huge Cubs fan, huge Chicago sports fan. He was born there. So I guess that's kind of where that connection came from.
Meant to be. And it's been quite a journey for you to this point. I want to ask about, exactly what it's taken to get here and some of that untapped potential that you mentioned. So what did it take to get through the hard times, Tommy John's, cancer, and to be where you are today and to pitch in the games that you have so far?
Yeah. I mean, when I originally signed in 2010 out of high school, I wouldn't say this was kind of the journey I envisioned, but it's my journey and I've taken ownership over it, every step of the way, whether it's good times or bad times. Anytime there's something, bad that comes or some adversity, I just try to say, how can I get better from this? Why did this happen to me? So if it's an elbow surgery, like, why am I getting hurt? How can I come out stronger on the other side? Is it my strength routine? Is it my training room routine? Is it my mechanics? I'm always curious, always trying to learn, always trying to get better. So that's kind of led me to where I am today. Not necessarily the easiest journey, but, I feel like I was cut out for it. I was kind of given the challenges because I can handle it. And it's definitely made me a better teammate, a better person, and hopefully at the end, a better baseball player.
Awesome. Well, first of all, and this being the first time that I've ever talked to you, you seem like an awesome dude and an awesome teammate, and you're coming to a great organization. So congratulations on your contract and everything. But my first question is having come up in the NL Central, at the beginning of your career, and then going over to the AL East and that tough, division over there, pitching, having 2 good years under your belts. Do you take anything away from pitching in the tough East, bringing it back here and now pitching in the NL Central?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, even going to the AL East, I took things from pitching in the NL Central first. The NL Central, when I was coming up, was pretty hard-nosed. You pitch in, it was a lot of ground balls. Like, the Pirates team at the time was pitching in and 2 seams and breaking bats. So I've definitely evolved as a pitcher, but at the end of the day, a lot of that's kind of part of my foundation and who I am as a pitcher. So I took some things from the NL Central to the AL East, and then obviously there's a ton of firepower in the AL East, just some huge superstar names. I threw against the Blue Jays like 6 times this year. I'm facing Vladdy Jr. 20 times a year or whatever it is, George Springer, Rafael Devers, guys that can really impact a game and change it with one swing. You're facing like 5, 6, 7-hole players who could be 3-hole hitters on a lot of teams. So I've definitely learned a lot about lineup management. That's part of why I think my walk rate got so good. It's like out of necessity. You can't be putting guys on whenever there's that much slug in the lineups. And so I've learned a lot. I still have a lot to learn. I gave up too many home runs for my liking, so that's something I'm going to try to cut down coming into the NL Central. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the number one thing is just learning how to deal with the firepower and just managing the lineups.
Jameson, great to meet you and welcome to Chicago. It sounds like in the recruiting process, you got a chance to sit down with Craig Breslow. Initially, it's supposed to be a 30-minute conversation. That went out to 2 hours. I would have paid any amount of money to sit down on that with you and Breslow. That sounds fascinating. But I'm curious, is there one thing in that conversation with Breslow that helped you understand how the Cubs view pitching that you like, that you maybe hadn't heard from another organization?
Yeah, so, I mean, he showed me a big presentation and, we got into the nitty gritty about pitch usage percentages and maybe some pitch shapes that we can really hone in on, and even some delivery things. Now these ballparks are equipped with like the Kinetrax, and you can really get the biomechanical breakdown and maybe target a few things I could get better on. But I'd say, like, really just the number one thing that I left that conversation thinking was, he obviously, I know how to take the ball and be a pretty solid big league starter every 5th day, but he made me feel like they want to help me reach that next level. And that lines up with where I'm at. I really, truly feel like I have more to offer and more to give. And I'm hungry to learn it. I want to be coached. I want to be coached hard. I want to find that potential. And after leaving that meeting, I was just kind of inspired about, like, you know, I might be 31 years old, but I feel like I can get better, deeper into my career. I want to learn. I want to get better. And it seems like they kind of want to push me in that direction also. So that, like, really aligned for me.
I love it. Back in 2019, there was an article written in The Athletic. Former teammate of yours, Joe Musgrove, now started for the San Diego Padres, said that in relation to coffee, which I imagine we'll get into, he said it's kind of like everything he does, he's real organized. Can you talk a little bit about how organization allows you to succeed? And also, are there any tips you have for young ball players or even young professionals who are disorganized to get organized?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of a cool story, but when I was with Pittsburgh, we used to do, when we were in the minor leagues, they would organize in spring training. They would have like a couple big league guys come over and do a meet and greet and just answer questions. And we had Garrett Jones come over, and he was teammates with Joe Mauer before. And I just asked the question. I was like, what was it like being around Joe Mauer? And he said everything he did was calculated from the moment he woke up. Like, he knows how much water he's putting in his body. He knows exactly what he's eating. He knows what he's working on that day. If he's hitting batting practice, every swing has a purpose. And like, that was the best advice I had ever gotten. Just him talking about being around Joe Mauer. So that really stuck out to me. And after that, I was like, all right, I'm going to really measure my bullpens, what I'm working on. I want to be really intentional about everything that I do. And that's kind of leaked over to my everyday life, like my off-season workouts, my throwing programs, my plyo ball drills, the way I like to cook, the way I make coffee. So yeah, I'm not overly obsessive over every little thing in my life, but I would just say, like, when it comes to important things, just having a purpose behind what you're doing, because you can always, if you're playing catch, if you have a purpose behind it, you can always get better. And hearing him talk about Joe Mauer kind of stuck out to me.
Okay, I'm changing my question here mid-show just since we're talking about coffee so much. I love coffee. I know everyone's thinking it, but I'm going to say it. You know, your first name, Jameson. Do you like scotch? Do you like whiskey? What's your drink of choice?
Yeah, I don't have too much experience with Irish whiskey, unfortunately, I actually collect some bourbon. I've got a pretty cool collection.
Nice.
Me and Jordan Montgomery, when we were with the Yankees on the road, we'd go to different stores and look for like unicorn bottles together and stuff. It's kind of a little bit of a hobby. So yeah, I'd say just like a good bourbon neat.
I thought he was going to ask you about the coffee. I'm probably the worst person to ask you. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, but I know that you have. So describe for us just your obsession, if you will, with coffee, and how you have talked to Ian Happ about that already, and potentially what could come here to Chicago.
Yeah, so in the minor leagues, you know, you're just surviving all the bus rides and the crazy hours and stuff. So I just started crushing coffee just to like stay awake and have energy. And then over time, I was like, man, there's got to be something better out there. I want to find the best cup of coffee. And, you know, on the road, you have time to kill. So I'd go to these cool coffee shops in all these small towns, and I would talk to the baristas. And I started learning a lot, and I started buying my own equipment and doing it at home and stuff. And that became kind of a hobby also, going to all these coffee shops. You know, now in the big leagues, every city we go to, I buy a bag of coffee from like a local coffee shop and take it home and brew it. So, you know, I've got all the gadgets, maybe too many gadgets, but I have fun with it. And it's a cool hobby.
And you have talked to Ian Happ. I think there was a Twitter exchange between you guys, and he'd said this would be a very caffeinated team, if you will.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, in spring training this year, so we met during we were both the player reps for our team with the union, and we met during the negotiations with MLB, and we talked about coffee a little bit. And then he asked for my address, and he sent me some in the spring training, and I was brewing it in the clubhouse for everybody. And it's really, really good stuff. So, you know, with all the day games at Wrigley, I'm sure I'll be brewing it up in there for everybody.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure this is just the beginning of the coffee potential now here in Chicago. Jameson, it was great to get to know you. Thank you so much for the time today, and congratulations. Welcome to Chicago.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.